So we've gone too long, haven't we?
Not at all.
For me, it would be getting married. The thing that hits me is the birth of the first child and the enormous responsibility that entailed. I just felt a sense of responsibility. Greatest moments I had when I was appointed to work on the computerisation of the Bank of Adelaide computer system. That was good.
I would think the high points were the birth of each of the children. Stephen, we were young and it was pretty challenging because he wasn't the easiest of babies. But personally, I suppose I've always had a preference to stay in the background, but I guess hospital visiting and stuff that I did for probably 20 years at Modbury would be probably one of the highlights. Yeah, so, and even being able to play tennis and take out a trophy, even if we were down in Division 4 and 5, but yeah, some of those are things, yeah, so I think that was a joint one, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
It was when Tom's mum was in the nursing home and we used to, she had dementia and we used to take her out, down the beach and anyway, one day they're walking along and Tom's just holding her hand and they're walking along down at Semaphore and this young couple went past with their arms around one another and she looks up at Tom and she says, "We're doing it wrong." So that was one that's always stuck in our mind. I don't know if you can think any others, can you?
No, it's just been good fun. There's been a lot of happy moments, but that's most probably the funniest one. Yeah. If you think of that period, we were a little lucky in that she was so far advanced there was no way we could help, and so she needed to go to a nursing home, which then meant that we could go and visit her, and beautiful times taking her out and just enjoying her company, making her laugh, that sort of thing. That was absolutely brilliant. And not too many people get that opportunity, yeah, around the end of somebody's life.
Just a very lovely take on things, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, very privileged. Yeah, I just think any success that I had was built on other people. So to me, the look at other people and see what their characteristics are and what their strengths are, and then build on that. So it's not necessarily humble. It's really saying, this person is important, this person is important, this person is important. So one of the things that I always said is, don't ever close the door on a person, because you never know in the future when you might need them. So, or they can be of help to you, or etc. So, it's not so much a humble thing. It's really just acknowledging that other people are very, very, very capable themselves. So, if you put that in line, then why would I be anything other than just looking up to them? Yep.
Lovely.
For me, is because it was an era, where not a lot of women were back at working once they had their first child. I found it was being the support person to Tom in whatever he was doing. And I didn't even think about whether it was being humble or not. I think it was just something that was your lifestyle then, and that's how you accepted it, so.
And very successful at it too.
It's,
I work on the basis that you have one life and you can look at it in a dark way or you can look at it in a happy way. So I've chosen the happy way. So I would hope that I'll always be able to look at life and I've been very lucky, and so it's easy to be happy in our situation. Very lucky.
Yeah, I don't know whether I was ever had the great humour, did I? I treated people as I found them, and I think as long as you aim not to put people down and not to discourage, then any humour that comes into the situation, is great. Mm-hmm.
Well, you've certainly got a sense of humour now, because there's many times we can have a good laugh at life, and yeah. Well, anger really comes from the way people interact with you. In some of the questions that you ask, one of the things that comes through to me is that if I look at a person and really look at them, in other words, look into their eyes as I say it, then you find that there are some characteristics that would you actually respect, and consequently you have to say that person is really a good person. They might be doing the wrong thing, they might disagree with what you think is highly important, but they have their own ideas, they've experienced different things. I can't walk in their shoes, but I can appreciate that they're a pretty genuine person. Yeah. So you can't get angry with them.
But I think anger comes out of frustration, so and I think if you point it back to yourself rather than labelling other people, then you generally learn to cope with it a lot better, so... yeah.
Everybody's important.
Yeah, but the only thing with that, your grandfather's been a sounding board for me sometimes when I've been very frustrated with certain situations. You find women have a tendency to be a bit negative, whereas guys usually blow up and it's over and done with. Yeah, so Grandpa was often my sounding board and bring me back to earth, Yeah, so.
Yeah, Jess and I definitely do that for each other.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it's being content with what you've got, rather than, striving for, what you see the achievements of somebody else, so I basically put it in what is with you.
Yeah. Just to build on that, I think that the marriage that we have is really good. We've sort of, over the years, we've sort of worked on that Margaret has strengths, I have strengths, so let's build together as a team rather than, I've seen people being angry about the strengths, why do they do that sort of thing. So there are enormous strengths within each of us, and if you can build on that, that's good. Now that gives you a great base. And then if you think of, just the pleasure of watching your children grow, and just the pleasure of watching your grandchildren, great-grandchildren develop. And the fact that you could achieve some things with regard to business and the voluntary work that you do. I mean, all those build on and just say, well, we've had a blessed life.
Yeah, but I think the other thing is, like in early life, we had to be totally dependent on ourselves.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
because neither sets of parents were in financial position, to help us, and because of Tom's work, we were often away. Like we were at Kapunda and we were at Streaky Bay, and I think that makes a difference too, where you have to rely on one another, so.
Very early, I was quite introverted, just quite shy. And so consequently that has an effect on pretty well everything that you do. In other words, am I good enough, etc., etc. So it would be to back yourself. It's just be brave and go for it. Yeah.
Being more confident and that, because like Grandpa was also very quiet and shy. Didn't extend myself, put it that way, to reaching out to others. We grew up in a community where we're out on the farm, and so basically our only association was mainly with relatives, other than catching a school bus going to school, so the rest of the time we didn't go socially out very much at all, so.
I've sort of made another sort of commitment. I don't do it yet, but I've made another commitment. Don't feel guilty. Like you make many mistakes over your lifetime. You make some good decisions, but you also make some bad decisions. And they can, like if you can't forgive yourself, then that can be debilitating. It just reduce your character. So the big thing is, I still make mistakes. I still get angry with myself in that I've been in a situation and done things that I would prefer not to have done. So the idea is that, to me, if I look forward, it would be not to feel guilty about those, to forgive myself, because I can forgive other people easily, and just forgive yourself. Yeah,
I don't know. I think I'm fairly happy with myself and where I'm at the moment. Yeah, so. The secret of a happy marriage is it's recognising that you've got differences and accepting those differences. It's also being able to talk through any problems or injustices that you might see without putting blame on the other person. Like, for instance, one partner might do something that you're not real happy with, but you need to be able to talk about it without making them feel guilty, so I think that's basically what it comes down to, is being very tolerant of one another and accepting one another as they are, and being able to talk through any problems that come up, you know, so.
Not much to add, except that Margaret has strengths and I have strengths. I think I mentioned that before. And just recognising that and acknowledging those strengths, yeah, and working within that as a team, yep. The changes in our lives, in a way, have been enormous. And if you think of both Margaret and myself being country, sort of reasonably protected, us in a country town, Margaret in a farm, the changes that go from moving to the city, to get married, to have your children, to move to Kapunda, to go to Streaky Bay, to come back, to keep changing your job, the emphasis on your job, going to Dandenong, coming back, tackling a completely different job, tackling another completely different job, with Margaret working through all of those changes as well, has meant that our life has been one of complete and utter change, and we've been able to accept that. Not necessarily happy with all of them, like technology is starting to get to me. The other area that's intriguing me at the moment is the complete change on the attitudes that I had as a person living in Mannum as a country boy, and the things that I classed as important, to today, where you think of gay marriage, you think of the relationships between men and women, you think of the issue of consent, those sorts of things that we never ever contemplated or had to even think about. Racial, I mean, you know, what's race? I mean, we just accepted that there were other people who were not necessarily of white skin around the place. And now it's the things you have to say. I think that's the most disconcerting thing to me, is that I've got to say the right things. I want to say the right things, but quite often in my language that I've inherited, it's not necessarily correct things to say, yeah.
Probably one of the hardest ones was coming back from Dandenong, because that was after the Bank of Adelaide collapsed, and Grandpa was being his do-good self, helping out a guy, but wasn't drawing any salary because the guy wasn't doing all that well. And we were just living off our savings, and I got to the stage where I was ringing round jobs in the paper, saying to Grandpa, apply for this, apply for that, you know. And so out of that, he did have a change of direction in where he went, and probably made quite a bit of difference to what he ended up doing in the future, you know. So, but as far as believe it or not, in the early days, I didn't drive. I didn't get my driver's licence until we were at Streaky Bay, and that was after Grandpa ended up in hospital having his tonsils out, you know, and I'm sitting at home with 3 kids, you know, so I thought, oh well, about time I got my licence, yeah. So, but not that I enjoy driving, I drive from necessity and that's about it. But the modern, you know, technical age with, computers and everything. I'm just completely lost. I struggle enough with the phone, so yeah. But other than that, I'm going okay. Yeah, so.
Well, the phones, I don't like the computers, but phones I haven't kept up with, and that's or I don't do enough. Do it consistently enough. Because there's so much complexity within a smartphone nowadays that if you do it consistently, then that'll fit. But if you don't do it consistently, I keep forgetting about how to do it. Yeah. Well, I think part of the problem about our generation is that I was reasonably happy with computers, but I just said, the phones, I'm not even going to worry about the phones, which was an absolute stupid decision, because eventually you have to know your phone. And so now it's just so important to me. I can pretty well do everything I need to do on the phone, but there's still so much in that phone that I just don't understand. Yeah. I've got a couple of good childhood memories. One was where we lived in Manham. There was virtually a scrub block over the side, and playing cowboys and Indians and just having the freedom, like we could run anywhere and do anything, and that was stupid, and it was great fun. The other was a very strange one, in that my job was to chop the wood, because we had a wood stove. And I could go out with an axe in hand to the wood pile, and I could belt out all my frustrations, just slamming the axe into wood stumps, mallee stumps, which were, if you knew how to cut them, they were really easy. If you didn't know how to cut them, you could take hours doing it, get nowhere. So yeah, a couple of great little memories. Yeah.
Do you reckon more people should
Definitely.
have a wood pile?
Definitely.
Probably everyone would have a bit of heart and
That's
right.
That's right.
Bit better than just punching the pillow or
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah, on the farm, I guess most of our activities just revolved around the church, so it would have to be, going on, Sunday school picnics, that sort of thing. It's about the only thing that I can put it down to in childhood. So we met at high school. I think I was in second year, and you were in year fourth year. Yeah, so and there used to be a bus load used to come through from Manham, and because I caught the bus the other way that went through Gamaraka, so the bird would, so one afternoon as the buses are pulling out, one of my friends told Tom I liked him, and he'd waved, and of course I ignored it, She came in the next day going mad at me. He said, "See, she doesn't like me anyway." But that was the start of it anyway. Yeah, so...
Yes, it was quite strange in that I was in leave. So I was 2 years ahead. But that worked this way. I started school early when I was 4, and Margaret started school later because she had to catch a bus, you see. So, yeah. So we were actually the same age, but Margaret was 2 years behind. Yeah.
Well, we, because we were young, no transport. Tom was at Manham, I was at Canton Valley, so we basically didn't see a lot of one another in those early years. It would only be, I'd perhaps stay with one of my friends at, Manham for the weekend. That was was about it, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
in this, while we were at school, but of course you finished school at the end of year 11, and so then you were working in the bank. So you had a bit more freedom. You used to come down to Gumaraka occasionally for one of the dances if somebody would give him a ride, you know, so... but apart from that, we didn't... We wrote a lot of letters, believe it or not, in those days, yeah, so...
That's nice.
Yeah, so...
Do you still have any of them?
No, I didn't keep them. Kept them for a long time,
Yes.
but then one of the moves we decided, no, it's about time they went, yeah, so... But then, of course, Tom got transferred to Adelaide with the bank, and Dad, so, you know, because none of my brothers wanted to stay on the farm, so he sold the farm and we moved to Adelaide, so from then on, you know, we saw a bit more of one another.
Made it a bit easier.
So.
Yeah. Well, the advice to share about money is don't take it too seriously. Some people consider it the most important. I mean, it is important and you need it, but there are also situations where you might need to pass some of that on. The thing that really scares me about money is that some people give money as a loan and they don't get it back, and it absolutely ruins relationships. I've worked on the basis that if you give somebody money, that's it. If it comes back, well and good. If it doesn't, not a problem. I will not let it ruin my relationship. Life? Oh, what could I advise you about life? Most probably go back to the one. You've got one, enjoy it.
I think we were probably at an advantage because we didn't have money when we were like growing up, you know, when we were young. You were lucky if you got, you know, sixpence, you know, for a week pocket money or something, you know. So consequently, when we married, we only had the very basics. We were renting, you know, well, 2 rooms to start with shared kitchen and bathroom. And then we moved into a flat, you know, before, and then we had a housing trust house at Hectorville. But we didn't have surplus money, so we never ever got into the vein of spending, you know, so we only bought what was necessary and put aside what was necessary to meet, you know, things like electricity and so forth, you know. So it never has been a pivotal thing, I think, has it? Like, you know, like gathering wealth. As long as we've got enough for our needs, you know. And admittedly, we've never been in want, you know, so purely because we were happy to be just using what we had, you know, so didn't live beyond our means. And I think that's the problem today, is credit is too easy, like people can get a credit card. And of course then there's the other thing, if both are working, and then some like to think their money is their own rather than, you know, that it's joint money, you know, in a relationship, you know, so they're all obstacles that we didn't have.
Yeah.
So,
We had to pull together. Every dollar we got was ours, not mine or Margaret's. And we just worked together on it, yeah.
For me, being a parent is one of the most privileged things that could ever happen. At times it's not easy, but it's something I would never ever want to change.
Yeah, that's good. It's hard to build on. For me, it's just, I mean, it's the benefits as well. You know, I often think that being a parent, it's almost sacrificial, but it's not really sacrificial. It's saying that this is our new life and these people are important, just so important. I mentioned the responsibility, and to see them grow up and continue to be a part of our lives, it is just so fulfilling, just so fulfilling. I'd like to be remembered. When Marg and I talked about this, well, that's their problem, it's not ours. But I'd like to think, number one, I had a sense of humour, and number two, I just didn't accept things. I thought the issues through. And number three, I was sort of loyal to people, tried to do the best I could for them. Yeah.
For me, it was that people accepted me for who I was. I've got no great aspirations really. Anything out of the box here. So I guess for me being Christian, it was something, being brought up in a Christian home to start with. So your values were all there to start with, and all right, a little bit in the teens I rebelled a bit, but generally, because that foundation was there, then you built on your own Christianity, you know, believing that, you know, Jesus is the be-all and end-all, you know, and that with him in your life, doesn't matter how many difficulties that you may have to face, there's always an answer at the end of it. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I'd take Jesus as being a serious model. I often call him in my own mind Super Jesus. In the Marvel vein of this current generation. So there are things like treat people as you would like to be treated yourselves. It's forgive so that you can be forgiven, that sort of thing. There's, you know, just acknowledging that people are important. Every person you meet is worth spending time with and thinking through and working through with them. That don't think too highly of yourself. Just things like that. Just Jesus' basic teaching, which then I think takes you almost away from the current trend of people thinking, almost takes you away from that. But in that, it provides you with a life that is fulfilling, and a life, as we've said, that, you know, while we don't necessarily always do it properly, it certainly is a recognition that we can continue to be part of society and a good part of society.
I struggled with, you know, mentors, you know, because there were, well, I guess for a start, my mother, you know, in the growing up, but in various stages of life, there were, we had one teacher that we could talk just about anything either, but I still didn't sort of class her as a mentor. There was one woman at Hope Valley that was a wonderful Christian person that I looked up to, but I still didn't put any of them into the sort of mentor category here. So,
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. There are numerous people I learnt a lot from. I mean, there was a bank manager that just absolutely astounded me in his capacity for work and the way he thought. That I mentioned that I was appointed to be part of the team that computerised the Bank of Adelaide, and the boss of that team was just his thinking was so broad. It was just amazing. There was a minister at Streaky Bay who sort of just opened my eyes about, it was Vietnam War was going on at the time, and he was saying, what's the richest nation in the world doing, making war against one of the poorest nations, that sort of thing, which was totally against the thinking at the time, the liberal thinking at the time in the Streaky Bay area. So there are a lot of people I'm really, really thankful for in passing their knowledge on. Yeah. The hardest thing I came up against was I used to get severe bronchial asthma, and that meant that, like, Mum tried to protect me, so when I went to high school I wasn't allowed to play footy, that sort of thing. I was only allowed to play softball. I was only allowed to do certain things. It was quite debilitating first thing in the morning, and gradually got better as the day went on. How did I overcome it? I recognised that with flock mattresses, there were 3 of us sleeping in a reasonably small bedroom. So we all had flock mattresses, bed, bed, bed. The window screen was most probably covered in dust, and I recognised that it was a dust thing rather than really the fact that I was debilitated. And so with Margaret's help, we gradually worked our way through it, and always kept a window open, etc. I don't have any problems now, but it was not a good time, and it limited me quite considerably. Yeah.
I can't think of any actual major things that happened. There were, when I have no idea, I was primary school. Everybody at school seemed to always have money to spend down the street at lunchtime. We were allowed to go down the street one day a week from the school. And so there were some pennies on the mantel shelf. And so I thought, well, I'll just take a few of those. So I had them in a hanky and was waiting, had to wait till nobody was looking, which meant that I was running late for the bus, fell over, pennies went everywhere, scanned the knees. My mother didn't say a word. She cleaned up my knee, put the band-aids on it, drove me to school because I'd missed the bus, and that was one of the things that stuck in my mind and made me realise that, you don't prosper for doing the wrong thing. Yeah, so, but health-wise, I can't recall. I can remember once having severe earache, and sitting on the veranda at the doctor's waiting for him to come into his surgery because it was at night. There's lightning flashing and stuff, you know, but my growing up was pretty ordinary. Yes, I.
I suppose that's a good thing.
Yes. Yes. To describe me: happy, interested, loyal.
Caring, considerate, and probably loyal.
Go back to one day in your childhood. If I could go back, I'd go back on that bus and hope that she waved to me this time.
Yeah, I must admit there was just one in 10 years that I'm just very thankful for was when you dived into the river and came up under the old wooden swimming pool. And I thought, there's no way he can stay under that long. But fortunately, he chose the right way to get out from under the pool. You know, so he's still here today. But that was the only one in my teen. But as far as in my younger childhood, I can't think of anything. Yeah, so other than that's one I did think, didn't I? Was one of the very rare occasions that we had snow, and I wasn't allowed out to play in it because I was home from school with a sore throat. You know, so I guess that's one of the things. And I've had my time again. I wouldn't admit that I had a sore throat.
Yeah.
The proudest moments, and I really struggled with this because there are so many times when you're proud of your children. And of the 4 children, we're just so proud of each one of them. And so it's difficult. For Stephen, it was a strange situation in that it was Craig's Bucks night and we went down to Carricalinga. And Steve said to Pete and I, and he, of course, I can arrange accommodation, no worries at all. We went to the Bucks night and then we went to this place for accommodation. I'm looking around and saying, this is a nice place. I said, well, who owns this one, Steve? He says, I do. In other words, he had actually built this place in Carricalinga without telling anybody. And I thought, well, that's just wonderful, Steve. Pete, many moments. The one area that he really excelled, which was picture framing. And he did a picture frame for a friend of mine, which was a medal. And you had to inset it, etc. And he did just such a magnificent job. And it epitomised his craftsmanship in the many, many things that he does. So, very proud moment. Leslie, she'd been to high school. She'd gone through very, very well. She was working in the bank and she recognised that wasn't for her. And she came to us and said, I want to be a teacher. Complete change, out of the blue sort of thing. And so we said, look, we're happy with that, right? Overjoyed, actually. We realised that's a serious setback financially, but we're overjoyed. So we're happy. You can board here, free meals, but I really don't want I want you to try and work out and not be a financial burden. She was not a financial burden. She worked all sorts of things to do so that she was never a burden on us. Magnificent effort, absolutely magnificent effort. For Craig, again, many moments. I guess what he's living with at the moment, the sort of pressure that he's under, the things that he copes with. We talk a little bit about business. His grasp of things just made me want to, gee, I was an amateur compared with him. Yeah. That'd be mine.
Lovely.
I think for me, for Steve, I think would have been, well, apart from, his, Steve was always a much quieter person, so he just worked quietly at what he was achieving. But one of the ones was they had a lot of problems trying to get pregnant with, and so they ended up having Thomas by IVF. And I can remember one night I think it must have been after Craig matriculated, we were out for dinner, and Mum and Dad had just come back from their 12 months floating around, and your mum announced that she was expecting you. And just seeing the look on Steve and Bronnie's faces, because they still hadn't been able to achieve that, and then the sheer joy when they eventually had Thomas, that was well worth, seeing, Pete was always a bit of a free spirit, very loyal to his mates. He was a very poor reader, so he developed crafts, so the others would pick up a book, he'd just do craft. Your mum, having two older brothers, she learnt to be very independent. She achieved, in Rotary sport, and stuff like that. And the things that she did to get through Teachers College, where she actually met your dad. Yeah. And then Craig, well, we always call Craig our bonus, so he brought many blessings to us on his, journey through life. And he had struggles when he came off his bike and broke his wrist and had to give up his place in a state basketball team and missed out on a trip to Queensland. But all his adversities, he seemed to, come through and get on top of them, so. But I think that's about all I can think of at this stage. So.
Thank you for taking the time and effort to do this.
It is, yeah. And I hope you get making enough of the moment.
That's right.
But I think the thing that didn't come out was, how proud we are of all our children, but it's all the achievements and of our grandchildren too that that we're very proud of as well. So.
Yes, we're very blessed, and there's not anybody in that whole range of our family that I can't get alongside and have a joke with and talk about their issues. They're all beautiful people, all beautiful.
Yes, right. And we wish you and Jess all the best in your
course
2
we
years
do.
overseas. Yeah, so,
Thank you so much for your time.
yeah,
Pleasure.
that's all right.
Yeah.
Especially all the work you had to go to.
That's
so
right.
packing.